Massachusetts Congressman Jim McGovern is our guest this morning. Let's go on the record. He is the chairman of the House Rules Committee. But do any rules still apply on Capitol Hill? With new revelations about the January 6th insurrection, an eyewitness to chaos looks for a path forward. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR on this Sunday. I'm Ed Harding, along with News at 5's political reporter Janet Wu. It's great to have you with us. We've made it to February. The Omicron spike is falling and fast, but we are also playing it safe, continuing our social distancing protocols here in Studio C. Our guest this morning joins us live via Zoom from the U.S. Capitol. You recognize him. He is the Congressman Jim McGovern from the state's 2nd District, first taking office in 1997. He's the chairman of the House Rules Committee and also a candidate for re-election at 2022. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Great to see you.
Mr. Chairman.
Happy to be with you both.
Mr. Chairman, it's great to talk to you. Let's start with January 6th. The House committee investigating January 6th has issued dozens of subpoenas. But the big question is, how important is it, at least how do you feel, about former Vice President Mike Pence testifying, and do you think it will actually happen?
Well, whether he testifies or not, I hope he'll cooperate with the committee. Look, what happened on January 6th is something that we just can't overlook. It was an attack on our democracy. People died that day. 140 Capitol Police were injured. Lives were threatened. And there was an attempt to overturn the results of an election. It was an attempted coup. So we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to hold people accountable. And I believe the January 6th committee is doing a pretty good job. I mean, every day we hear more and more. I mean, we're now learning that Donald Trump was very much involved in the planning of January 6th. We now know that he's ripped up documents himself that now the National Archives is taping back together, documents that basically outline a very, very disturbing pattern that amounts to a contempt for our democracy. I think what he did was criminal, and so I'm confident that they're going to complete their work, and a lot of people are cooperating.
When do you think there will be public hearings? When will those begin, do you think?
You know, I think public hearings will come probably in the next few weeks, or certainly in the next couple of months. I think it's important that there be public hearings. I think the American people need to know what the committee knows, and they need to digest just how close to losing our democracy.
Congressman, even if legislation is drafted and approved by the House, what hope do you have that the Senate would go along with it?
Well, I mean, legislation on what? On dealing with some of the impacts of January 6th?
The impacts of January 6th, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, you know, I'm hoping that there are reasonable people in the Senate who, you know, may not share my political ideology, but nonetheless care about this democracy. And one of the most disturbing things about the aftermath of January 6th to me, in addition to the revelations that come out every day, is the fact that there are so many people here who want to go along to get along and not offend the former occupant of the White House. What happened on that day was despicable. What happened on that day resulted in the loss of life, the destruction of property, the injuring of, as I said, 140 Capitol Police officers. It was a dark, dark day for this country, and literally our democracy is at stake. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, this is not a partisan claim. I mean, we are really at a moment where we could lose what is so unique and special about this country.
Let's turn our attention to the third branch of government. An opening on the Supreme Court is now top priority for the White House. As you watch from the House, do you expect much opposition from Republicans regardless of who is nominated by President Biden?
I hope not. I'm sure President Biden will nominate somebody who is not only qualified, but who I hope will break a glass ceiling. The first African-American woman appointed to the Supreme Court. We have the votes on the Democratic side to get the nomination over the finish line, but it would be nice to see some Republicans join in support as well. I mean, we have never, ever had a black woman on the Supreme Court. So this is a historic moment. So
the Republicans would not be necessarily need to gain another seat. Do you think that at least a few Republicans will come over, like perhaps our former governor, Mitt Romney, will move over and vote for a nomination from the president?
I hope so. I mean, I've been disturbed by some of the pushback on the nominee, on whoever the potential nominee is. I've heard some Republicans say that they thought it was inappropriate for President Biden to commit to appointing a black woman to the Supreme Court. I mean, they didn't object when Ronald Reagan promised to appoint a woman to the Supreme Court. They didn't object when Donald Trump said he'd replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg with a woman. But all of a sudden, when President Biden's talking about a black woman, all of a sudden we hear these Republicans coming out being outraged over the fact that he would do that, almost implying that a black woman wouldn't be qualified. That's offensive, and quite frankly, that's racist. So I trust that President Biden will keep his promise. I believe the Senate will approve his nominee, and history will be made.
Congressman, conflict in Ukraine looks very likely. President Biden is sending more troops to the area. Vladimir Putin is not backing down. Is President Biden doing the right thing?
No, I think President Biden is doing the right thing. I mean, he is still relying very heavily on diplomacy. I'm not sure that a war, an invasion of Ukraine is absolutely going to happen. I hope it doesn't. I don't know what the Russian people would gain by that, other than Vladimir Putin's ego being, enhanced. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is, if he does this, it's a bad deal for the Russian people, and it increases global tension. So, having said that, I think it's very, very important that we continue to not give up on diplomacy. I don't think a war is something that anybody should want, and I worry that some of my colleagues are trying to, out-hawk, the hawks here. Mm-hmm. And I get the impulse, but let's all take a deep breath and let's try to find a way that Putin can have an off-ramp so we don't have war, and we can reduce global tensions, and maybe we can find other ways to cooperate, whether it's on arms control or on on combating terrorism, or even dealing with the global climate challenges. So I'm not yet resigned to the fact that there has to be a war here.
I want to shift the conversation a little bit to the Build Back Better bill, because it's backbenched, my term, backbenched right now, which progressives like yourself pushed hard for many months. So with inflation rising, does this end hopes for resuscitating it anytime soon?
Well, because inflation is rising, we should want to pass the Build Back Better bill. By the way, it's all paid for, and that's key here. Inflation is not only a challenge here in the United States, it's a challenge all over the world. This pandemic did a number on our economy. Inflation in many other countries is much worse than it is here. So President Biden and Democrats in Congress are trying very hard to deal with some of these issues and getting more money into the pockets of struggling families so they can afford rising prices. I think is a good thing. So I think. I'm confident that we can make some progress. Let me also just say, one of the causes of inflation that we need to focus on is corporate greed. Let's take the meat industry, for example. Meat prices are rising. That's not because farmers are charging more to produce meat. It is because the middleman, the conglomerates that are in the middle there, are jacking up prices. Again, not to help our farmers and they're ripping off consumers, but to line the pockets of their CEOs and other investors. That has to stop. President Biden has said he's going to go after those individuals. And today, we're dealing with the Competes Act in Congress. Again, that's going to deal with some of the supply chain issues and help us be more competitive, especially against China. So, we understand that inflation is real, and we are doing what we can to try to combat it.